I'm Lloyd Holliday, and this is the Cost of a Thing podcast. Thanks for listening in today. So what happened to that great standard of living that we used to enjoy here in America in the 1960s and even into the 1970s? Well, that's what the Cost of a Thing podcast is all about, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. Okay, today I'm going to introduce another new segment called the Lloyd Holliday 1960s Experience. I'll put that right up there on the top of the thumbnail, so if you guys are interested in that kind of thing, you'll be able to see right away, well, he's going to talk about some of his experiences in the 1960s. Now, if you've listened to my podcast before, you know that I grew up in the 1960s in Southern California, about a mile from the ocean, and I have very vivid memories of all of that, of how it was, exactly how it was in my mind. It's almost like a movie, if I think about it, and I wish I could just play that for you guys on here, but it's just in my memory. So I'm going to do as many of these podcasts about the 60s experience as I can to try to get that whole experience out there. And I know there is people interested. There's kind of a natural curiosity, especially if you weren't here at that time, like the new generations, the millennials and the Generation X and other generations beyond that. And if you've watched my podcasts before, you probably know that I've done individual podcasts on each of my top 10 super ripoffs. And those super ripoffs are the main things that I think have lowered our standard of living since the 1960s. So if you're interested in what those are and some more detail about those, there's a playlist of my top 10 super ripoffs on my YouTube channel. There's many other things about the 1960s that I think made it a better time. I'm going to talk about some of that. The first one today that comes to mind is the loss of the single earner family. Back then, most families had a mom and a dad. Dad would work at a job and he'd get enough pay and benefits to raise his family. Mom didn't have to work. Mom could stay home. And most moms did stay home. And of course that meant there was, no babysitters for the kids like they have now. A lot of the babies now go to babysitters all day, even when they're infants. And back then, mom stayed home and took care of that baby and the kids as they got older. Now the kids, a lot of kids are, I would say most of the kids are in daycare. The moms today, they're out working. That being a mom, and even if you're not a mom, taking care of a household, that's really can be a full-time job to keep it properly cleaned and maintained. What was standard and just normal operating procedure back then of mom staying home, now that is a big luxury. If somebody is doing that today, you got to have a really high income. The man or the woman who's not staying home has got to have a really high income in order to have the other partner stay home and take care of the kids and the household. So it's like a luxury, and very few people do that now. Yes, and today in most cases in families, because of the high prices of housing and the rest of the cost of living, most moms have to work. They don't have a choice if they want to get a decent place to live for their kids. And it's kind of like a catch-22 because now you got two incomes, and the house sellers know that people make more money, so they raise the price of their houses up when they sell them to absorb that new source of income. So in a sense, by mom going to work, she really didn't gain anything. The family didn't really gain anything because the prices of things just went up to absorb that new amount of money that the family was earning. I hope you can kind of see that. And it's true for much of the money that mom makes. It just gets sucked up. The house prices went so high that now she has to work. So in the bargain of moms going to work, the family didn't really gain much as far as their standard of living, if anything. They might have even lost. And certainly they lost mom being home. So in the bargain, they lost the mom being home, really for no more gain to the family. And I think, in just my opinion, the family and the kids, I think they do lose something in that. It is, I think, a big reduction in standard of living, because all this stuff that was done during the day by the one partner, usually the mom, that stayed home and took care of things, now got to be done by both partners after they get off of work. That's when they go do their grocery shopping. That's when they go pay the bills. And another thing that I remember that has been lost with all the moms going to work is when the moms stayed home, there was a lot more ladies clubs and ladies community action groups that women would volunteer to try to make the community better. Maybe it'd be a garden club and they'd make the town, they'd put plants around the town and stuff like that. And I don't see a lot of that going on anymore. The women just don't have the time to do it, and we've lost that. So that's another thing that's been sucked up into the two-earner family vortex. I remember my mom would be off and she would take us over to Little League and Little League practice and swimming lessons, take us out to the beach, take us to the roller skating rink, whatever. She was there and available to do that. It was a nice thing to have mom home the whole time. And then we'd all get together, usually for a pretty nice meal at the end of the day, and have dinner together, the whole group, the whole family. Mom had the time to cook a nice home-cooked meal nearly every day if she wanted to for us. Now it's fast food. Maybe once in a while mom still cooks, but not like it was. And then on the holidays, the moms would put on these extravaganza feasts. I mean, just about everybody I knew around the neighborhood had that for Christmas and major events, Easter. And those things take a lot of time and energy and effort to put together. And if you're trying to work full time and pull something like that off, it's not going to happen, or not like that anyway. I mean, these were feasts, and with a bunch of family members would come over, an extended family, and home-cooked pastries, and just everything you could think of. Today you'd probably have to hire a catering business to take care of something like that. And who knows what that costs now, like putting on a wedding dinner or something like that. And yeah, those are nowhere near as good as the food that mom used to cook. I can guarantee you that. And this really was the standard procedure for the middle class. I mean, that's what happened. Dad went to work. He made the money. Mom would stay home, take care of the household and the family. And that's how it was. Now, and you can see that reflected in a lot of the TV shows that were made during those years in the 60s. And that's how it was. A lot of those families depicted in those TV shows were middle class, or some of them might have been a little upper middle class, but most of them were middle class. And really, that's kind of how it was. Those kind of like little idyllic TV shows they had, like, okay, Leave It to Beaver. That's a pretty good, if you wanted to know how it was in that's probably a little middle upper class family in the 1960s. That's kind of how it went. And June stayed home, June, Beaver's mother, and Ward, he went to work as a kind of an insurance, some kind of executive or something. He wore a suit and tie. I don't know, he had some kind of job where he was a white collar guy, but even the blue collar people had that same setup. My dad was a blue collar guy. He was a heating and air conditioning guy and a welder, and we had the same setup as the Leave It to Beaver family. And we had 5 kids in our family. And the other TV shows, Dennis the Menace, if you want to watch that was a similar kind of a setup with mom staying home and dad going out to work. Those were not fantasies. That was how most people lived back then that I saw. And even like a show a little later on, it came out, The Wonder Years. I don't know if you've watched that. That is a pretty good depiction of how it was to live in the 60s. Again, mom stays home, dad goes out, nice nice middle-class family, nice, decent neighborhood. That was how it was, with just Dad working and Mom staying home and take care of the household business. And incidentally, the kid on the Wonder Years, and I remember watching this back in the late 80s and early 90s, and I found out just by watching the show that kid in the show, Kevin. Yes, in the show, that kid was exactly the age I was the series of years the show was set in. So I was his age during that time. Yes, Kevin Arnold. And you might say, because of that, I am a real-life Kevin Arnold character who lived in those same years as the show was set and was the same age as that character, Kevin Arnold, in the show. And it was set in the 60s and probably early 70s. If you want to know how it was back then, watch those shows. They're pretty good representation, very close to how it really was then. So that's another thing you could do besides watching my podcasts as I tell about how it was to live during the 1960s as compared to today. You can watch those shows, see how it was, and compare yourself. They don't tell everything in the shows, but it's a summary kind of and an overview of how it really was. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up for today, and each one of these I do the Lloyd Holiday 1960s experience. I'll kind of pick a different topic and try to go into it as much detail as I can, what I remember about what I experienced, and then kind of reflect on some of the other things, the TV shows. I'll bring out more TV shows, but I know I have a list somewhere here of a bunch more TV shows that really depict the 60s as they were at the time for most people. And my goal here is that by the time I finish doing these podcasts, that who's ever interested out there will know everything that I knew about how it was to live during the 1960s. Thank you for listening in today. And until next time, this is Lloyd Holiday signing off.